you're asking, we can't do it.
Don't tell me I can't do it. Don't tell me it can't be done.
From Salt Lake City, Utah, this is the Guerrilla Film Guide podcast, where we talk with other creatives in the film industry to share their insight, talk about their process, and encourage others to pursue their passion. And now, here's your host, Michael Merrell.
Welcome back, everyone. I am very excited because today I'm sitting down with Chaz Evans, who is a local writer, director, and producer here in Salt Lake. And his latest short film, Night of Adventure, actually took home the best film under $500 at the Utah Film Awards this year. So after watching the film, I wanted to bring Chaz in to talk about his experience directing a micro-budget film and share it with all of you, because I know most of our audience are also indie filmmakers like us. So I hope you enjoy the episode, and without further ado, please welcome to the show, Chaz Evans. How's it going, Chaz?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I listened to your podcast on the well, not your podcast, but I listened to you on the Movie Hour podcast this morning, which was really awesome. That was a really good episode. It cracked me up like multiple times, and yeah, it was a really good episode. Those guys are so good at what they do, and I love, I with this podcast, I'm trying to focus a little more on getting in depth about filmmaking.
Yeah.
But the fact that they actually take the time in their show to talk to local filmmakers is so cool, and something that I think more people really ought to be doing, because it's just awesome.
Yeah. I like their segments they got.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
definitely keep it engaged. They're just awesome personalities. Like, they're a lot of fun to talk to, and I'm like, man, one day I need to get on that podcast just to like hang out with them, because they seem really cool.
No, they're really cool, really professional. I had a good time.
That's
It was my
awesome.
first time in a radio station.
Yeah, it's something different. If you have never been in a sound booth or like a radio station booth, like
It's crazy.
it takes you a minute to get used to it. It's really cool. So yeah, let's talk about Night of Adventure then. So start us off in the writing process. Like, walk us through how you came up with the idea and kind of how that unfolded.
Well, the idea initially came when I was drinking one night,
Yeah.
and I had this idea of two people, and it kind of follows I think he's a Polish filmmaker, Kolowski, maybe. I don't remember his name, but he's a Polish filmmaker, and he had a quote saying, how we have so many run-ins with people in our lives that we will never see them again. So if you apply that to like somebody you meet at a bar or something like that, kind of leaves you wondering like, oh, what kind of impact could they have had, you know? So with this, I just knew I wanted to use two strangers at a party who have like one hell of a night and then go off in different ways,
Yeah.
which is pretty much what life is, really.
There's definitely a lot of that in life, for
Yeah.
sure.
So I had that idea in mind and texted my friend, and I was like, dude, give me a girl's name. Like, what's a cool girl's name? Because I couldn't think of anything. He's like, Marley. I'm like, Marley? And like, there's a whole interaction in the film that kind of makes fun of that and reflects upon that. But so I wrote that without any idea of like what structure is or how to write a screenplay necessarily. So then I took a pause on that. Like, I finished the first draft, and I took screenwriting classes at the university, and I didn't come back to that script until like 2 years later for my last semester. I took like this basic screenplay class that I just took for credit, and that script met all the requirements for lengthwise. So
there you go. Just pull it out of the vault.
So I pulled it out of the vault, and I actually refixed it and applied everything I've learned for like the past 2 years to it. And I think it was like 5 drafts later, I had it there for a final and submitted it. And then one night after drinking again, last year, because I graduated in the winter of 2017, so in the spring of 2018, I submitted it as like a last hurrah to the Utah Film Awards, and I go, hey, you're officially selected and nominated for Best Short Screenplay, which I did not win, but
Yeah.
even then that was really cool. And then
Yeah.
I was going to submit it to other festivals, but then I was like, why can't I just make this myself? Because I intentionally wrote it with like a low budget in mind, something that I could possibly do. So
No, I think that you gave two really good little pieces of advice and insight there. Which the first one is, after you write a script, don't immediately just like start sending it out and getting excited and like trying to jump on it. Take some time to like let it sink in, take a step back from it, because you'll come at it with a whole new perspective and see a lot of flaws or a lot of ways you can make it better. And I think a lot of people kind of rush through the writing process because
Yeah.
they're just so excited to start filmmaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one is, write with your budget in mind. Write thinking like, I'm going to write this for me. Not everything has to be a big Hollywood blockbuster or, cost, even short films that cost $10,000, $12,000. I'm working on one right now. So, but they don't have to be that. You can just go out and make something and, write a story that you're passionate about that you can sit there and make. So that leads us perfectly into making the film. So why don't you start off with how that kind of came about? Who were some of the first people you talked to, and how you pulled all that together?
So initially, I sent the script to Landon and a guy we were working with then named Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And
Landon Kasdan.
Landon Caston, yeah, he's the producer on the film. And I told both of them that, I want to make this over the summer. Can this be doable? Because I was working with Landon before that, due to him reaching out to me to work on another project that he had in mind. And I met him through doing the student project,
Mm-hmm.
because I casted him as an
Oh,
actor.
nice.
And it was a horror film, so it was a bloody mess. And then he reached out to me a year later, and that's how we started working together. And then Paul went on to do his own stuff, and Landon still had it on mind, and we just teamed up and got together. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, Landon is one of those like just crazy like multi-talented people that like he's a great actor. He's stepping into directing now. He's an awesome
He
producer
has so
and
many connections.
has so many connections, and just because he's such a positive guy. And I think that especially in this industry, it gets you really really far
Oh,
just
yeah.
being a good, like genuinely good person, not because you're trying to get something, but just because you love film, you want to help people and you want to spread positivity. And that's definitely Landon in a nutshell.
Oh, yeah.
So
No, we've had so many conversations of films, and like specifically like lower budget horror films, because that's
mhm.
like we both like horror films. Um, and we're always constantly thinking, well, how could we pull this off with like even a lower budget, and
Mhm.
making it fun. I guess overall, it's like as long as we love the projects that we're doing, like, and they're fun, like we don't really care. Well, no, we do care, but like we're not focused on so much the uh possible failures
Mhm.
of said projects, because it's a miracle that films even get made.
Yeah, I definitely think that like um that's always a good practice, like trying to see where are the places that you can like kind of trim the fat so you're not spending as much, think like we said, thinking about how you can from the script stage, thinking about how you can make this a possibility. And I think not enough people really take the time to like, they either get overwhelmed by it, I think, or they don't take the time to really think like, how do I do this? They just think, oh, I can't do this. But there are ways to do so many things that look like a way higher budget on practically nothing. And I've been on bigger sets where they were like using duct tape and shoestring to pull things off, like when they had they had access to all the professional gear,
I love that.
but it was like further away or it cost money. So like whatever, we'll just use duct tape and string and just like make it work.
It's
Or
so beautiful.
I know Roger Deakins a lot likes to use just like practical stuff to play with light and like
Mm-hmm.
reflections and that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So you should never let budget like scare you off of something. There's always a way to make an idea happen. It may mean that it doesn't quite look as good or professional if you like absolutely want to do VFX or practical or something like that, but like there's always ways that you can get up there and make your film.
Oh, yeah, totally. And like at the time of like trying to find the funds for Nav Adventure, I mean, it was less than $500.
Yeah.
But at the time, that was basically a paycheck that I was getting, because I
Yeah.
was working part time. Um, which is really surprising considering that like I already graduated. But anyways,
Hey,
it,
it's a lot of us.
oh my god, yeah. But so it got to the point where I sent the script to Landon, and he said, "Tell me what you need." and I'll get it. I'll try to get it and help you out. And I was going through the script, and I think the biggest element that scared me was like the cop car,
Mm-hmm.
because the movie involves some cops, and I didn't necessarily know how that was going to work.
Mhm.
So I went to my parents, and I'm like, if anything's going to cost money, it's going to be the crafty, and it's going to be this cop car, like the police. And they were like, well, if you put us as producers, like big names on the credits, we'll do it. And I think they're trolling, but I was like, okay, I'll do that, whatever.
I was gonna say, I've complained to my mother about not having enough money for films many times, and never once did she go, "Yeah, credits will be worth me giving you money for this."
No, and the only thing they helped me out with was like the food, and Landon
Yeah.
also chipped in with the food, and I chipped in with food. So like that was all that. And I know Eve, the other producer on the project, she was a
Yeah.
makeup artist. She provided all the makeup.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Because that's expensive. Like, people really do overlook hair
Yeah.
and makeup and what that can cost.
Yeah, and so all I had to do, I mean, I think my biggest fear was going and asking the police department, hey, could we use a cop car?
Mm-hmm.
But so there's that saying, like, all it takes is to know somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And my stepdad works for the city, for Woods Cross City, which is where we shot most of our stuff. So he had a tie-in with the Woods Cross Police Department, who I sort of knew ish.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked the chief of police, and he's all for it. So
No, that's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
there was supposed to be a trade-off of me filming something for them, but never
It
worked
never
out.
happened.
No, so we got a free cop car for sure.
That's yeah, that's pretty awesome. And that's even if you like you're right, all it takes is to know somebody. That definitely helps. But
Just ask.
just ask. Even if you don't know somebody, like, send an email, reach out, and if you don't hear back from the first one, find somebody else to send it to. Like, there are a lot of people out there who, when you say like, "Hey, I'm a student filmmaker," or "I'm just like a local indie filmmaker, we're doing a zero budget film, and we'd love if we could get your help with this," most of the time they're pretty willing to help.
So that's actually how I sort of met Jacob. Was because Landon gave, or I think it was Paul actually, gave him my information to be like a substitute AD on
Mhm.
this one set for like one day. I was like, sure, whatever. So that project though, the director, I thought like he knew these people's house that we were filming in, and turns out he just knocked on their door and asked if they could film in their house.
Are you
I'm
serious?
dead serious.
Okay, that might be a little too ballsy for me. I don't think I'd ever knock on a stranger's house and just maybe their yard. I
No,
think I would. I think I might ask if I could like film in their front yard or something, but not their house.
No, yeah, he like knocked on the door. He's like, "Hey, I like the exterior of your house. Like, is there any way we could like take a look inside? And would you let us film?" And like, we're like, "Oh yeah, sure." Like, they're really open about it. And
Wow.
and I had no idea until like I asked. I'm like, "So how do you know these people?" He's like, "I don't." Right. And they let us use a fog machine in there, and like we got some really cool shots in there. I don't know what happened to that project. I was like, "Damn, dude!" Like, and this guy, the
That's
director, is
ballsy.
like younger than I was. I'm like, "How can you have more balls than I do?" Like, so I actually took that experience, and I'm like, hey, maybe that's what it takes is to ask and not be afraid. So, and and Night Adventure was definitely like the bigger project I've ever worked on.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and by bigger, I mean like lengthwise,
Productions. Oh,
yeah,
lengthwise.
production wise too. Yeah, I mean like it was just more chaotic. There's a lot of stuff going on in the script.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we had no money. So I mean, that really was just like a handful of how am I going to pull this off kind of thing.
Yeah. No, that's definitely like going from a you can pretty comfortably film a 3 or 4 minute short in a day as long as it's all in one location, maybe two, something like that. But as soon as you start, even if it's all in one location or two, as soon as you start adding days on and you have no budget, you're not paying people. So you can't be mad if they're just like, yeah, I can't be there that day, and it's scary. It is scary to like walk into that knowing like it is oof, there's just so many moving parts and any one of those pieces could fall out of place at an instant because you don't have the budget to pay somebody to make sure everything is there and working and ready for you.
Yeah, and like none of the actors got paid for this either, and that was a discussion. But so like I would have been screwed if any of the lead actors
Mhm.
failed because we held auditions. And there was like one night when we were going to film at a park, and the actress was supposed to be in that scene. It was like such a minor role. She let us know if she can't make it. That's a lie. It was the day of.
Oh boy.
Yeah, no, it was the day of. Sorry. And I had to call just a random or model that I knew, see if she wanted to be in it, because like there was like no lines on her end really.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, sure. So she showed up, thankfully, last second. But I mean, yeah, like it just takes like a split second to really screw things up for sure.
Yeah, really send things into chaos. So other than that, which it seems like you got lucky and were able to find somebody pretty quick, what were some of the other instances that you had to deal with that were like that, where either due to budget or just something unexpected, you had to adapt very quickly?
Well, there's a fire pit scene
Mm-hmm.
outside, and that was actually that had to be a reshoot because we tried to do it on my backyard. Turns out, fighting crickets on the audio is a bitch.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it got to the point where we couldn't even hear the actors. Like all you could hear was the crickets. Like,
Wow.
and we lived by a golf course, so like it was very much loud.
Oh wow.
And so I had to once again reach out and ask if somebody had a fire pit that we could use, and where would I film it at. So I asked my grandparents, who live by a freeway, so we had to fight that.
Oh,
this whole
boy.
project was just fighting sound, basically, and that's what I learned in post, because it was a bitch to kind of work around.
Yeah, I can imagine. As a sound guy who's been on a lot of low budget sets, I can tell you when you don't have the gear, or it's a more inexperienced director who doesn't know to think about those kinds of issues beforehand, like you can end up in locations that just completely destroy your audio, and people will forgive, an overexposed shot or
Over
kind of
audio.
a little shake or something like that, but if they can't understand what's going on, or there's something way distracting going on in the background, they will tune out so fast.
Oh yeah.
So fast. Even if they keep watching the film, they'll just miss like entire scenes.
Well, and I remember one night the sound guy was like, I think you're gonna have to ADR this. And I was like, fuck no, dude, like get closer. We're shooting tight, get closer. Like I do not want to do that, But yeah, I think as far as like people dropping out, like it would have probably been like the party scene.
Mm-hmm.
Because we had to film increments of that throughout the day and leading up to the night for like the big party scene. And so we had to film interactions before that, and then we had to location change real quick and fight time because we shot in golden hour, and then we had to shoot in the blue hour for like a morning scene, like right after.
Wow, I have warned so many filmmakers against party scenes. You're good. I've warned so many filmmakers against party scenes when they do not have the resources, they don't know enough people, and even if they do know enough people, they're like, I have a bunch of friends who will show up, and I'm like, when you have a real party, how many friends actually show up that say they're gonna show up? Like now make it a fake party where they have to stand around, pretend to talk, drink fake booze, and do like, it's a lot harder to get those people, and just to work with that many extras.
Yeah, well,
is a new challenge.
So like me and my stepdad brew beer, like homebrew.
Oh, nice.
So we had a lot of extra bottles laying around for props, and all we did was fill them up with water. And some of the extras were kind of pissed off. I'm like, you're not having
serious?
alcohol on the set. Like,
Also, what
let's
that
be
would
real.
cost, like, just to give an entire party scene
No.
real
Oh
liquor.
my god.
Like, that's
And
ridiculous.
I think it was like after the party scene, like after everybody left, like all the main crew sat around. I'm like, okay, it's like who actually wants a beer? Like,
Right? Yeah.
like the real people, But no, I was grateful for everybody that showed up. And that was all because Landon and Eve did their magic and did like a wide post, and people showed up, and so many people showed up to my house before I was even there because we were shooting at Landon's front yard, so it's like a 10-minute drive.
Oh, nice.
And the neighbors, because we live in a condo area, so parking was a bitch, and there's like so much stuff I didn't take into consideration until like it was actually happening, and it got so bad that my parents had to call me because they left out of town to go camping
Mm-hmm.
in time for us to film. Like they worked with me, and I like that.
Yeah.
They called me up saying the neighbors were calling them complaining that there was a party thrown, and like they were snitching on me essentially.
Oh, man.
And they're like, no, he's filming. Like, what are you talking about? And then it was chaotic for sure. It was fun though. Like I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is definitely a lot of fun, especially, well, it's easy to say it's a lot of fun when you're done and you're like looking back on it and you're like, yeah, I had a lot of fun. But there are a lot of days that it's really hard to tell yourself you're having fun, you know. But that's the thing, is just pushing through and fixing those problems and moving on, and knowing, you know, it's a lot easier once you get your first one done, because you know that as soon as you get through the process, even if things go wrong, even if you face all these challenges, as soon as you're done and you're sitting in the edit bay, like, there's that sense of relief. And then as soon as you get through the edit and it's all locked and released and people are viewing it, and well, before people are viewing it, there's another sense of relief. And then once people are about to view it, you're like, oh God, what are they gonna say? What are
Yeah,
they gonna say? So what were some of your thoughts on like as far as like nerves, or like what were you thinking? How were you thinking this was gonna be received?
releasing it like after it was finished,
Yeah.
or oh man,
We'll get back to the post, but I'm curious just on that line of thought.
I remember the day of the release at the festival, because like that was my first time having something accepted in a festival.
Hmm.
You know, like a finished actual product, not just like paper.
Yeah.
And I was showing ours next to Lenny's, who I know is a talented filmmaker. So I was like,
Very. Yeah.
oh my gosh, like I felt kind of honored personally because I actually like Lenny's stuff and I think he's a great guy. And I'm like, oh my god, there's gonna be people there to view his stuff too. So it's gonna be all these strangers, like so many strangers. I'm like, oh my gosh, like maybe if I sit in the back, always the back, you know, and just like let people like talk amongst themselves. I'm just like, nope, I'm observing, right?
Right.
And it was actually really anxiety ridden. Like I remember being at work that day and just like my hands shaking, you know, and it was nerve wracking for sure. And then to top it off, I didn't know we had to do a Q&A after.
Oh man.
Yeah, so that was my first time up doing a Q&A about a project, and I suck at interviews and suck at questions, and it's just it was a learning experience for sure. So
Yeah, no, it definitely is. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of follow that train of thought because I was curious, like, what
yeah,
was the biggest
one
this fear when it came to.
well, there's like parts in there that I thought were funny.
Hmm.
Again, I have a dark sense of humor, so having a movie premiere in Provo,
Oh yeah.
it's kind of, and like not to mention my also like so like my film swears a lot,
Hmm.
and there's like so many fuck bombs on there and whatever, right? Like I get it, it's Utah, so the fact it was premiering in Provo, I was really surprised, and I was surprised that people stayed to watch it. But it's the parts where it was supposed to be funny with dark humor. Like I was more worried that like they wouldn't laugh,
Yeah.
and some people laughed, and I'm like, oh, okay,
Humor is always the hardest. That's
yeah,
always like, even if you think a joke is the funniest thing in the world,
yeah,
everybody's got a different sense of humor. So that's one thing that I always tell people, like, don't worry if people say it's not funny. Like, I mean, if everybody says it's not funny, then maybe you need to take a look at it. But if it's like even a 50-50 split, that's pretty even for comedy, you know, as far
yeah,
as like what people like. So I'd say focus more on the story and focus more on the characters and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah,
And because I've seen a couple scripts where it was very obvious that the person was just completely focused on trying to be funny, and it meant that the characters and the story and everything else around it really suffered.
yeah. Well, I mean, it could be funny on paper too, and it also just depends on the performance
Yeah,
of
and
the
just like
actor,
it just doesn't translate
and it
on
also
film.
depends on how the director is trying to convey it. You know, and like it could be lost in translation in so many different ways, and it's ballsy to keep it in. Like
Yeah.
even if you like rewatch it editing over and over again, like it loses its funniness.
That's when it gets the
And you
worst.
start questioning, like, am I going
Yeah.
insane? Like, who do I show? So you show a family member, right? And they laugh. And you're like, okay, well, I'm going to make a different edit. And you show them again and they don't laugh. And you're just
Mhm.
like, well, shit. Like, how do I go about this?
Yeah, no, humor is just a whole nother animal, and people who make comedies, let alone really good comedies, or like, it's you gotta have some you gotta have no fear. Like, you can't be completely worried about like what everyone's gonna think in order to pull off a good comedy.
Yeah, yeah. And like, with like Night of Adventure also has like, I mean, it's not just funny. Like, I think it's funny in the beginning. Like, it's
No,
pretty
I think
quirky.
there are a lot of really good humorous moments throughout.
But I mean, I think the core of the film is just kind of like a serious message, you know,
Yeah.
like through dialogue. And like, even with writing it, like, I was criticized like in that class, like if having too much dialogue. You know, I'm like, no, 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 people talk. And we
Hmm.
filmed it, and like it was during filming process when I realized I was getting bored just sitting there and watching them redo it over and over again.
Oh, if you're getting bored on set watching it,
Yeah.
that is oof.
And so I knew for a fact in post I'd have to trim it down even more. And I know there's still issues with it, like being a little bit too long. But
When you had that moment, when you realized like, oh, they were right, there's too much dialogue here, I'm getting bored. Did you go back and like, did you keep that in mind throughout the rest of production and
yeah,
cut stuff down?
yeah. And so
that kind of
I'd
thing?
meet with the actors beforehand, before a scene, and
Mhm.
like go over their script and just start crossing things out and then have them read it for like a good 20 minutes, and ask, like, if they have any questions, ask me. I was trying to convey to them, like, this is the message we need. Like, even if you don't get these lines right, 'cause I know I just totally fucked it up for you guys.
Yeah.
As long as you get the theme and like the message out somehow in any way you want, because it's your character.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you're bringing them to life. Like, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So there's some improv moments for sure, and even in editing, like I'd have to take out even more stuff than like what I took out in the script.
Oh yeah. Well, a movie's made 3 times: once with the script, once in
Filming,
production,
yeah.
and once in the edit,
Yep.
and each one is completely different.
Yeah. And that was it was actually a question at the festival, the film festival. Somebody asked like how many drafts did it take,
Mm-hmm.
and the usual numbers like 5, 6, scripts of course. Then I followed up with that saying that like even the edit though, you go so many different drafts of an edit. I'm like, it's never finished until you push publish.
I couldn't even count.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever really kept count. I think I had an editor once who did. He used to save each time he'd go in for revisions. He'd save it so that he could see how many.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have enough space on my computer for
No,
that.
it takes up a lot too, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I've always edited my own stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and working with an editor is something that I really want to do, just to see, because they have an eye for stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like, and so it'd be nice to see what their point of view is. So that's on my future bucket list for sure, is to work with an editor.
Oh, I definitely recommend it. It's a very different experience. Some people, don't like it a lot, but I think that your films will be infinitely better because
Yeah.
you'll have somebody there, if they're a good editor,
Yeah.
who their goal is the same as a producer, just to make sure that the best possible film comes out at the end. And they're going to see things or think about things in a very different way from you because they weren't there through every step of the process. So I highly recommend it. And if you need recommendations, I know a few really good editors who are awesome to work with.
Well, I know that a lot of editors have like their own style,
Mm-hmm.
and they get to know your style of filmmaking, and like once you find the editor that fits that style of the film that you're trying to get,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, I think that'd be so relieving.
Oh yeah.
Because I know like Tarantino he used to go to the same editor until she passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had somebody work on Hateful Eight. That was like a whole new process. And I guess his new movie too. Somebody completely new.
Yeah.
And so I think it's interesting as well. And I know that I believe Ryan Johnson goes to his same editor too, who's been friends with.
Most big directors, once you get to the Hollywood stage, they've found
Yeah.
their one person because it's just such an easier process to just have someone, like you said, who knows your style and you know their style, and you can communicate like silently sometimes, where they just know exactly. Like with my editor, who I usually go through, Adam Townsend, who's really really awesome. With Nomads, we sat down and I mean, I didn't have to tell him anything. He didn't even do an assembly cut. He just sent me the cut of the film. Though to be fair, that was because we had so many issues on set that like there was no way to follow the script. So it was literally half of it was just him looking through and be like, "This is the usable footage," but the other part was like he said so many moments in there that were just I would not have seen. I would not have thought to do them that way, or even just like the sequence in which he uses the coverage or choosing not to go to a wide. And we've had that rapport, so it's totally fine when he does that. I wouldn't recommend, if you're working with someone for the first time, not just skipping an assembly cut, because you might miss some stuff. And even if they do a cut, go back and look at the footage they didn't use, just to see if there's anything you liked a little bit more. But you're right, once you get to that point where you have somebody that you can trust, it makes the post-production process so much easier and more comfortable, because it's rough. The first time you see that assembly cut, it doesn't matter how great production was, it is always rough.
You're gonna be questioning yourself.
Yeah, you are definitely. You're like, this is terrible. I shouldn't have made this movie. It's so much money. People are gonna hate it. Like, because it always looks bad. And then eventually, it's like, I heard a really good comparison where it was comparing it to like sculptors.
Yeah.
How the first thing they have to do is like they have to figure out what kind of clay or marble or whatever they're going to use, and that's like pre-production, and then they have to go out and they have to find it or quarry it or whatever if you go back far enough, and that's like production. But it's not actually until the edit that you're actually sculpting that rock, and you just kind of have to chip away until is it Da Vinci or who had the quote that talks about like chipping away at marble? I just chip away and the art reveals itself or something like that. I know there's a quote like that, and I'm completely
Michelangelo. I don't know.
maybe I'm not sure, but I know there's a quote that talks about like you kind of chip away and let it reveal itself, and
Yeah.
that's very much I've in my experience what happens in the edit.
Oh yeah, totally. Each draft you just peel back more layers, and I think the story kind of shows itself with each draft that you do.
No,
Each cut, I
absolutely.
should say. But
Yeah.
but I think also though, what's hard is not editing to temp music.
Ooh, yeah, that's
because I fell in that trap, and then I think I kind of restricted my composer, which was my dad.
oh yeah.
And so I'd show him, I'd send him 2 cuts of like one with the temp music just to get the vibe, one without, just so he could come up with his own thing. And I think that's a good way to work with him for sure.
Yeah, and that's going to vary from composer
Yeah,
to
yeah.
composer. I know some composers hate hearing any kind of temp music, so even if you do edit to temp music, you take it out before you send it to them.
Yeah, and that was I think that's Hans Zimmer's master class. He said Christopher Nolan doesn't edit to temp music at all.
Oh,
Which is really interesting because like his movies are usually intense, like
yeah.
there's like some sort of tension, and then the fact that Hans Zimmer is able to like pull from that, like it's just starting from scratch. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So with Knife Adventure though, I gave my dad like the tone, like the music I was possibly looking for. I didn't really know, and he started working on stuff and sent me drafts. As months went by, and got really excited, and then seeing like there's like one scene like towards the end with like hearing the music with it, hearing the music with it was very was cool to see it visually put in place with the audio, and
Mhm.
it's like, oh my god, like this is what it is, like
The difference it makes from even using temp music, like when I first got the score back from my composer for Nomads, it completely changed the movie, like the
it
viewing
does.
experience for it. And I would highly recommend, if you can get a composer, do it. If not though, there are so many good like open source like free resources out there that you can find to do that. But if you have the opportunity, someone who'll do it for free or for cheap, or just if you have the budget, get a composer, because they have just such a unique way of viewing the music. So yeah, you definitely use that. So let's get into the festival itself. Did you submit to or sorry, after post, did you submit to any other festivals other than the Utah Film Awards, or was it just the Utah Film Awards?
There was 5 overall. We got declined from one, became a finalist from another one, became officially selected in the other 2.
4 out of 5 is not bad though.
No, and I know there was one where Casey and Emily actually won, like best acting duo.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome.
So we won 2 awards overall, and then became officially selected and finalists and the rest. So.
Yeah, no, that is really, really awesome. I mean, uh, I'm about to submit Nomads to a bunch of festivals,
Do it, dude.
and I'm just like, oh, this is the cost is definitely it jumps up pretty quick.
It does.
And also the thought of like, some of this money is gonna be for naught. It's gonna end up being for nothing. But yeah, you're right. It's 100% worth it, and there are definitely. I mean, not every festival is worth it. You have to be smart with your money, especially when you're working on these super
Read the
low
reviews.
budgets. Yeah, read the reviews, see what people's experience is. So tell me a little bit about the Utah Film Awards like experience itself, because I've been there once before, but not as a filmmaker. So For people who might be interested in submitting to the Utah Film Awards, kind of talk about what that experience was like and like what some of the best parts were for you being able to show your film. I know you talked about the Q&A was kind of terrifying and stuff like that, but tell us a little more about that.
Um, well, so last year when I went for the script, uh, once you get officially selected, they you pretty much get free screenings to all the movies, which is nice. And you also get like a dinner thing to meet all these other filmmakers and network, and they have all these classes and workshops you can take.
That's really cool.
Yeah. The downside, in my opinion, is just the inconvenience of time, of being at different times during the day, and like if you have to work, and,
Yeah, that's always going to be tough,
uh,
especially if you're not just like a full-time filmmaker. You can't dedicate
yeah,
3 or 4 days,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
sometimes to a
yeah,
festival.
yeah, exactly. And like I think those are more beneficial for people who are full time filmmakers who
Hmm.
are actually there to get the full experience and like can take time off work, or if they're traveling from out of state, and like really want to check out, like all for that. But last year when I went, I bought a ticket to Taylor Sheridan because he was a guest speaker.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and I went to his little what do you want to call it, Q&A
workshop.
workshop
Yeah.
thingy. Yeah, really cool guy. Like during the festival last year, like he sat in a row in front of me. So it was
Oh
like,
nice.
yeah, but I never shook his hand. I never introduced myself, sadly. But I also I don't like crowding famous people. Like,
Yeah.
so many people there were just like essentially kissing his ass.
That's
And
one of the reasons I don't like Sundance anymore.
dude,
I
no, it's
don't like
so
Sundance
annoying.
anymore just for that fact because everyone, in fact, every time I've ever, even when I was younger, even every time I've ever said I went to Sundance, the first thing that
Who'd you meet?
everybody at who'd you meet?
Yep.
Who'd you meet? Did you meet anybody famous? And it's kind of unfortunate, which is why I like going to Slam Dance now, which happens at the same time, is way more indie focused. They have a ton more short films, and they're just so filmmaker friendly. Like they're very much about promoting filmmakers and like DIY. A lot of the films there are made on tiny, tiny budgets, tiny budgets. Um, and it's just such a better vibe because even when you're meeting people and talking to people, like there's so much more authenticity because you're all most of the people there are filmmakers who are in the festival or filmmakers who love that stuff or are just real into film. 'Cause that's pretty much the only reason you go to Slam Dance is if like, Sundance is for meeting the famous people. Slam Dance is like if you're just a really hardcore film lover and want to see some really incredibly unique, sometimes kind of disturbing short films. The ones last year where there were a couple that like left me shook. It was real intense. I definitely recommend going to that. But yeah, just you need to research those festivals.
Yeah.
Getting all the way back, you need to research those festivals. You need to be thinking about what you're putting into your production when you're from the get go, and you should be thinking about it from the early stages. What is my game plan for distribution or for after this is done. You can't just, if they make it or if I make it they'll come kind of mentality.
You need to put the effort into it.
Yeah, you need to really think through, how am I going to get people to see this? What is the purpose of me putting this out? Do I care if it's just on YouTube, or am I trying to monetize it, or what's going on?
Um, so with Nav Adventure, we were wondering how we could get people to come to the festival. So Landon reached out to Lenny, and Lenny agreed to do like a double promotion,
Hmm.
and so we just supported each other and really invited everybody we knew. And dude, it's hard, especially on Facebook, because not a lot of people give a shit.
No, they really don't, and that's, I think a lot of people also forget, like Facebook most of the time is just friends and family, and
It is,
for most
yeah.
people they're not in the film industry, and
They
even
have
if they like
families.
give you a like, or they
Yeah.
give they're like, "Oh, great job." They're same thing applies to like getting feedback from them. Like don't ask for feedback from, I mean, it's good to get feedback from anywhere, but like don't let your first couple of rounds of feedback be from like your friends and family, because they are not going to have the same insight that somebody else is. They're probably going to get distracted by like the unfinished effects or by the sound or something like that. They don't understand the film process. So yeah, that's a whole another challenge. But it's great that you teamed up with Lenny like that. That's a really smart way of going about it and trying to bring more people to to see the film.
Well, yeah, and that wouldn't have happened without Landon reaching out. That wasn't even my idea. I think it might have been Landon's and Lenny's,
Hmm.
or just Landon's, or it might have been just Lenny's. I have no idea. But Landon called me up and saying, "Oh, this is how we're gonna do it," and then give me the lowdown. I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And Lenny made the poster
Oh,
and for
sweet.
the Facebook event where it's like both our movie posters with like world premiere on it.
Oh, that's really, really awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of like a fun little thing.
Yeah, no, it's great that you guys like teamed up like that, and I'd recommend like that's such a great idea of just like it's not always a competition. You're
No, it's
not
not. No,
fighting like
yeah,
you're always it is a competition for views sometimes. You know, but it's not competing against other filmmakers. You're just competing against all the content that's out there.
you're in the same game.
Yeah.
People are gonna watch it. People aren't gonna watch it. You're both gonna have people who love and hate
Mhm.
your stuff. Like it's just that's how it is. And I think like the support that Utah has for one another, I think is really cool.
It's better than a lot of places. There's a lot of
Yeah,
places that, you know, there's even if they have a strong, especially if they have a strong industry, it's very competitive. Utah's still competitive, but there's just kind of a different tone about it. You
yeah,
know,
and I think it's not competitive. Like if it is competitive, like I don't think it's a bad way. Like I think it's more like a fun, like, hey man, look at this. What do you got?
yeah,
You know, like
it's like it feels more like kids soccer where you're
it really
just
does.
like it's just you're cheering everybody on no matter what, and it's
You're
just like good job for trying, guys.
like
Like
hell
this is
yeah.
awesome, hell yeah. Versus yeah, you get to you get to some other places and
They,
it's like
they
a
tear your
college
oh my god,
rivalry,
they
like
just tear your
just
film apart. They talk shit on your techniques. Like it's
yeah,
and I think that's why like I don't want to move it to LA just yet. I mean,
yeah,
eventually I probably will, but I don't know if I will. I don't know. Take that back. But I don't know. I know out there though, it's like a dog eat dog
it can
world,
be, yeah,
and I don't know. It's scary. To I guess what I'm trying to say is to actually produce a film and put it out there is more ballsy than making a film and saying that you tried.
yeah,
Because at least when you have it out there, you can say that you actually did it
oh, yeah,
and have
absolutely.
everybody see it and just it's
Doesn't
right
do
there,
any good
dude.
just sitting on your hard drive.
Yeah,
Doesn't do any good just sitting on your hard drive, even if it's terrible. I have finished it that I have finished several films that I can just rip apart that did not turn out how they were supposed to, that had major issues or didn't look right or whatever the reason was. And there were a few that I was like, do I just take my name off this and not like show it to anybody and forget it existed? But uh, yeah, if you start doing that, then it becomes easier and easier to do it. And it's it also makes you, I think, more and more sensitive to negative feedback and
yeah,
to that criticism. And you're also going to shut yourself off from just like a lot of really positive feedback. And, you know, even the ones that were terrible, I've had plenty of people say, like, it was a lot of fun. You know, I enjoyed it, even if you know, it was clearly like a little student film and had its issues, but it was still really fun. And, you know, it's if you don't take that leap, if you don't just like say, I don't care what people think, I made this, here it is, like it or hate it, whatever, as long as you enjoyed it and you care about it and it meant something to you or you learned from it, you know, then it doesn't matter what other people say.
yeah. And you're always going to be onto bigger and better things.
Exactly. Your next one's, like I said at the start of this, your next one is going to be better.
It's just
It
like
will.
each film is just a stepping stone to something much better, and it's also like a huge reflection of like who you are as a filmmaker. You know, like
Absolutely.
there's so many elements of short films that like have filmmakers, what do you want to call it, passions and desires,
Hmm.
just like a subtext and like strewn throughout it. You know,
Yeah.
and each film is gonna be like a reflection of like where they are in life and like them exploring different. I don't know. I think it's
No,
beautiful. I think film's a beautiful thing,
absolutely.
really. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is. I think something you were kind of touching on there is like it's also kind of, you know, having what they're going through being woven in there. It's also very it can be a very therapeutic experience as well for a lot of filmmakers. I know I've made a handful of things that like well, maybe not. I don't think I don't think I've had that with any of the ones I've made so far, but with writing, I certainly have, where I worked out an issue I had with somebody through a character or a script or something like that,
Yeah.
you know, and it made it better for that because it made it feel more real because there was a part of myself in that. And yeah, you're right. It is just, it's a beautiful thing, and I absolutely, uh, I wouldn't give it up for
No,
anything in the world.
even all the headaches,
Oh yeah, it's
sleepless nights. It's all worth it. It's
yeah. Before we wrap things up, I think the last little thing that I'll say is just like all we've been talking about is a lot of it, and what I'm getting from what you talk about Night of Adventure is it's the people you work with.
yeah,
It is so much about the people that you work with and surrounding yourself with not only people who are going to be positive and encouraging, but just who are awesome at what they do. And they may not be masters. They're probably going to be about at your same level, but
yeah.
people who just have that little spark that can bring something new, or that have just a little bit more expertise in a certain area than you, because that's what directing is. It's about building a team that you can trust to carry out your vision.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that just comes from if the talent and the cast, or talent and the cast, same thing. If the cast and crew all believe in your story
Yeah,
and they're all willing to get on the same page as you, and they're willing to meet in the middle if you
yeah,
disagree on something, like it just shows that they want to put the effort into it to making it great too. And like with Nev
absolutely.
Adventure, like I mean, like I said, nobody got paid, and we got two actors that got nominated and one. Like I mean, Emily was nominated at the Utah Film Festival for Best Actress,
Yeah,
and I'm proud of that just because it's such a lower budget movie. It's a 36-minute short, so it's a longer short, and the
yeah.
fact that she still stood out, like it just, I think the passion seeped through for sure.
No, absolutely. I would definitely agree that, I'm somebody who's always critical of films, and I always like giving feedback and breaking things down just so that I can learn and
Yeah,
so that
yeah,
I
yeah.
can, give constructive feedback and everything like that. And uh, I remember sitting and watching the film for the first time and just saying, like, this is somebody who, they're still learning. They still, have their growth that they're working on, but it's somebody who clearly has a passion and clearly was able to rally a crew behind them in such an effective way, that it really, like you said, that really showed in the film itself. And I think that's why it won Best Film Under 500, is because I have no doubt, just like you said to Nomads when you first watch it, that there were people in that audience who said, no way that was made for less than $500.
I
So
start questioning it honestly. Like I
yeah,
don't know if that's like I don't want that stroke an ego, but like it just made me happy seeing like it actually turned out, because that's one of the biggest fears of not knowing how it's going to be,
absolutely.
being worried that people aren't on the same page because there is no money, in such a bigger project. Like 36 minutes is a long short too. I
Oh, that is a long
would not
short.
recommend making a short film that long. Like, but
Yeah. No, you
yeah,
guys
worth it
did
though.
well, but
Yeah,
yeah, making a short that long is real
it's ballsy.
sketch. It's real. Yeah.
It's
Well,
just
I
no.
think you guys did a great job
Thank you, man.
with it, and I'm really, I hope it, picks up. I'm really excited to see what you're doing next. I know, we're gonna be working together on some things with Landon and
Hell
Eve
yeah,
and
dude.
Lenny and all that. Yeah, I'm super excited to be working with you. So real quick before we go, a couple of rapid fire questions.
Let's hear this.
Uh, what films have made the biggest impact on your life or on your filmmaking?
Well, I'm just gonna say Arrival
Oh,
for sure.
yes.
Uh, Probably the only film that makes me cry within the first 3 minutes.
Oh, that opening. Yeah, that is
And just
really
by the end, dude,
powerful.
it's a very poetic film, and I think it's
Well,
beautiful.
up
Up is
definitely
up
did
there
that.
too. Oh, you're
Yes.
right. Oh my god.
Oh, that opening. Oof.
That's a good opening. We'll say Breakfast Club.
Hmm.
I love Breakfast Club.
Very good.
Just because I think John Hughes is a great character writer.
Yeah.
I think so, and some people don't think he is because
Well,
some
he
of his
does
stuff is
have some. There are some of his films that are did not age well.
no, for sure.
No, they did
But
not age well. But I think
given
even
that
in
time
those films,
period,
yeah,
yeah,
given the time period, I think even in those films, you may not like the character. They may be kind of sleazy or misogynistic, or some of, especially when it comes to the women in a lot of films, still to this day, do not seem to make choices that it would be very logical, or they're
No, for sure.
clearly written by a man
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
things.
for sure, for sure.
But still, he did have, especially in The Breakfast Club, just really, I would say he was a good character writer, even though some of his characters were kind of questionable.
Yeah,
But
and then
no, for sure.
there are 2 TV shows.
Oh, nice.
One's being Sons of Anarchy.
Oh, yes.
Just that's another great character-driven
Hmm.
show, and I cried. Like I don't cry often, but like that show got me to cry. And then also Seinfeld.
Really nice.
Yeah, I actually and because Seinfeld kind of reminds me of like Joe Apatow movies too, just because they're so over the top comedy and just like real life situations. You're like whatever.
Yeah.
And the older you get, the more you relate, and I like it.
Yeah, I never got super into Seinfeld, but
You
I
should
always
binge it,
watched
dude.
tons of. Well, I have watched since then. I think I've watched most of them. I've watched them all now, but just like especially when it was like on air and I was younger, I was never super into it. I'd watch when my parents weren't around. I'd watch The Simpsons because we grew up kind of religious, and Simpsons was definitely a no-no. But yeah, TV just as much as film, I think, can have a huge influence. For me, it was Star Trek. Star Trek was the specifically Next Generation was the
That
one
was my
that
dad.
like really, yeah. I mean, you can see on my shelf,
Yeah.
I've got all 7 seasons, like the Silver Collector's Edition, because yeah, that series had a huge impact on me, and I joke, but also seriously, that I like my children are just going to be raised on metaphors or comparisons to Star Trek: The Next Generation, because
That's not bad though.
you can literally teach any life lesson with a Star Trek episode, whether it's original series or TNG. Like there is an episode that deals with just about every single topic, including some that like subtly dealt with like homosexuality and a
Yeah.
lot of real sensitive issues for that time, and they did it incredibly well. So yeah, it's awesome to hear. I don't think I've had somebody say TV shows yet, so that's really cool. Next, that was a little not quite rapid fire, but it's still good. What films are you looking forward to this year?
Some films I'm looking forward to this summer are The Lion King.
Nice.
I'm gonna fucking cry in that, dude. Hard. I will bawl. Midsummer. Is it Ari Aster or Ari Aster's new film?
Ari Aster.
Is it Ari Aster? The guy who
Yeah.
did Hereditary. I loved Hereditary, so
Yeah, it
I'm
was
excited for
really good.
Midsummer. And Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, what's your last question?
Last question. Let's move into it. So, what is just like one piece of advice that you'd give to other filmmakers who are just starting out?
Shia LaBeouf it.
Shia LaBeouf.
Just do it.
Yeah, not plagiarize, but just do it. I actually like him as an actor most of the time.
Yeah, I think he's a great actor.
Like he was it Fury that he did?
Yeah.
I thought he was really good in that.
Did you see that's gonna be weird. Did you see Nymphomaniac?
Yes, actually, I have. Yeah.
So I mean, the director claims that like they CGI'd faces over
Mm-hmm.
actual,
Which
porn.
happens quite
Yeah.
frequently. That's usually what happens.
But like seeing that movie, dude, I don't know.
It might be. It might be. Yeah. Which
But,
is like
it's
it sounds like it definitely is a movie that the title kind of turns a lot of people away from it, but it's actually a really
Lars
good
von
movie.
Trier, dude. If you want
Yeah.
to talk about a ballsy filmmaker, like
Yeah.
have you seen his most recent one, The House that Jack Built?
No, I haven't. I've heard about it though.
So Landon and I saw that unrated at the Tower, when they were doing that last year,
Oh, nice.
and it was so ridiculous that I started laughing and people started laughing because like it's just like kind of fun, but in a twisted way because like serial killer, right?
Yeah.
And like people started laughing, and like the part I laughed at is probably like spoiler alert when he kills his family.
Yeah.
And it's just only because like this is so over the top. Like Lars von Trier doesn't give a fuck at all, dude.
No,
He does not give a fuck. He's just doing this because he's trying to tell a story. I mean, that's the part I get. And like I started laughing, and Landon leans over, and he's like, "People laughing at this are fucked up."
Yeah, well, anybody who likes Lars von Trier or
And I love his filmmaking style, like his edits and like
Yeah.
his shaky. I love everything about his cinematography. I think he's a great filmmaker.
but
I don't necessarily agree
You
with
gotta
his-
be a little messed up to like.
I don't
to
agree
like
with his
films.
subject
It's
matter.
nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but you're right. You have to be like that. If there's a story you want to tell, if there's something you want to do, you
don't
just
give a fuck.
do it.
Yep.
Don't care what people are gonna think. Don't care
That's a good
about
segue.
Yeah, just don't. No, thank you. Yeah, don't care what people are. I know. I was like, we're going on another rabbit hole here. I gotta
No, bring it back.
bring it back, bring it back.
Let's end it.
But yeah, no, it's 100% accurate. I think you do just have to do it. You have to be like the guy that did Mulholland Drive. Shit.
Oh, David Lynch.
David Lynch, yeah. You have to be like a David Fincher or David Lynch or Lars von Trier or these people who are just like, I'm going to do it the way I want. I'm going to tell the story that I want to tell. I'm going to do it in my style with my voice. And I don't care what anybody says, whether they like it or not. Great. I'm going to make my movie.
Yep.
And it is especially important when you're at those lower levels like we're at. We are indie filmmakers, and we don't have $1 million mansion to go cry in when our when our films fail. So you have to build a tough skin and be willing just to take a risk and say, I'm going to do it because I love it. And that has to be, most of the time, that's got to be your only reason. You know what? I'm blanking, but the guy that does all the Emmerich. Roland Emmerich does not
Yep.
care
Nope.
if he's telling a good story or if people like his movies. He just wants to go make big, giant disaster movies, and he fucking loves it. And that's the guy you have to be, like just whatever you want to do, find a way to go do it and express yourself and use your voice and your vision to carry it through no matter what challenges you have to face. And that's something that I've definitely learned with Nomads, and it's very apparent with filmmakers like yourself who have gone out and gotten recognition or building an audience off of these films that cost very little to make,
Yeah.
other than kindness and being a positive, encouraging person and a director who listens and creates this atmosphere and builds a good team around you, which again is what directing is all about. So just huge shout outs to you and all the other filmmakers like us who are just doing it.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, Chaz, so much. This has been a really awesome episode. I can't wait to have you on again. Definitely going to have to do it soon. And yeah, I can't wait to see what you do next. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.